more to food than what meets the fork. But sometimes you have to take things with a grain of salt. Coming up, breakfast. Everyone loves it, but is it really the most important meal of the day? Were pancakes once a symbol for sin? And does drinking coffee actually stunt your growth? It's time to wake up and re-examine these common beliefs. Are they old wives' tales, ancient elixirs, or just clever marketing ploys? Every bite you take has a story, every morsel a myth. Is it baked with fact or flavored with fiction? Coffee. If you're like me, the day doesn't start until that first sip of caffeinated goodness. And like me, you probably grew up hearing from your parents that kids who drank coffee would pay an awful price. They would stop growing. But is it true? Does coffee really stunt your growth? Or did we all grow up with a caffeinated lie? Day begun. The coffee plant was discovered in Ethiopia in the 11th century, where its berries were hailed as a magical fruit with medicinal properties. By 1555, coffee had made its way to Istanbul, where a new method of preparing it was developed. The beans were roasted, finely ground, mixed with water, and cooked slowly over a charcoal fire. Coffee arrived in North America in 1668, but didn't become popular for another 100 years. That's when Americans' taste for coffee began to percolate, in part due to a nationwide ban on tea after the Boston Tea Party. By the 1800s, coffee was a popular breakfast beverage. That is, until a vicious rumor started brewing. A rumor that expert eater Dan Pashman is all too familiar with.
I don't know about you, but I can't even form sentences in the morning until I've had my first sip of coffee. So, hang on one sec. That's better. Now, it's funny because my grandmother, back in the day, she would always say, don't drink coffee, it'll stunt your growth. And it turns out my grandmother was a victim of this big brainwashing campaign that swept the whole country.
It seems to stem from an ad campaign launched in 1895 for a caffeine-free breakfast drink called Postum.
Postum was a roasted wheat, bran, and molasses beverage. It was kind of like a bran muffin you could drink. I can't imagine why that didn't sell.
The bigwigs at the Postum Cereal Company wanted to sell the nation on their caffeine-free alternative to coffee.
Instant Postum is just the thing for you. You see, Instant Postum contains no caffeine. That means it lets you sleep.
So the makers of Postum said all these terrible things about coffee. They said it's bad for your heart and your kidneys. They said it'll ruin your complexion. They even called it a nerve poison. That's harsh.
Coffee nerves, what'll I do about coffee nerves? Oh, here's what to do about coffee nerves. Switch to Instant Postum.
Enjoy Instant Postum all day long and forget about coffee nerves.
Postum was marketed as a kid-friendly beverage, and their ads claimed that coffee should never, under any circumstances, be served to children.
It said it'll give your kids bad grades, and it'll hamper proper development and growth. Sounds scary. Postum's crazy anti-coffee claims spread across the country. A lot of people have believed them ever since. Thanks. You can leave the pot.
But keeping kids away from coffee is a lot tougher these days than it was back in the 1800s. Today there are cafes on every corner that sell coffee drinks that look and taste like milkshakes. So kids, are you feeling the buzz?
It makes me feel like more awake and like when I'm tired, when I have it.
Well, it gives me a little bit energy, like when I'm just like, I feel so tired. And what I like about them is that you get the option to add caramel to it.
Sometimes I can feel something in my brain turning on. Definitely more energized, a little more jittery.
It's pretty good.
So, how caffeinated are these sweet concoctions? Turns out those frozen coffee drinks have about half as much caffeine as a cup of black coffee. Oh, and decaf doesn't mean caffeine-free. Each cup of decaf contains about 1/10 of the caffeine as a regular cup. And if you think you're limiting your caffeine intake with a light roast, think again. Light roasts actually have more caffeine than dark roasts because caffeine gets burned off the longer you roast. The caffeine buzz is hard to avoid. But is there any scientific evidence that coffee actually inhibits growth in children? Registered dietitian Patricia Bannon sheds some light on the subject.
There's no scientific proof that coffee consumption will stunt a child's growth. However, there's a lot of reasons why coffee is not a good choice for children. Even a minor amount of caffeine can cause irritability in children, can cause sleep disorders, can raise their blood pressure. So you really want to be careful how much coffee or even any level of caffeine drinks a child has.
So if you wish you were a few inches taller, don't blame the coffee you drank as a kid. It seems that caffeine might be hard to avoid no matter how big or small you are. And I know my mornings wouldn't be the same without it. When we come back, we'll find out who really discovered the buzz that coffee provides. Was it a man, or a woman, or a goat? The answer when we return. Ever wonder how the stimulating effect of coffee was first discovered? And by whom? You might be shocked to learn that the responsible party wasn't a person at all, but a goat. According to an Ethiopian legend, the caffeinated power of coffee was discovered when a goat herder witnessed his goat's energetic behavior after snacking on the berries of the coffee plant. And when he tried some for himself, he felt the same buzz-like effects. Wait, did the goat invent coffee creamer too? Oh, there's something decadent about a hot stack of pancakes topped with butter and covered with maple syrup. You could even call it sinful. Yes, in some religions, pancakes are strictly forbidden during that holy time of year, Lent. Are pancakes a symbol for sin? Humans have been making pancakes for a long, long time. While the word pancake first appeared in print in 1430, man has been cooking up these bad boys since the latter part of the Stone Age. Cavemen ground wheat into flour, mixed it with birds' eggs and water, and poured the batter onto a heated rock. The first colonial settlers were taught by Native Americans to make griddle cakes out of maize. These griddle cakes soon became a staple in the American diet. But pancakes have also been a religious symbol for centuries. Sound strange? Just ask Mark Strange, who's ready to serve up a tall stack of pancake history.
The ingredients in pancakes and the four pillars of Christianity are closely tied together. Eggs stand for creation, flour stands for the basic nutritional needs of humans, and wholesomeness with salt, and purity with milk.
In fact, flapjacks may have been the inspiration for one of Christianity's most holy days, Shrove Tuesday. Never heard of it? You may know it as Fat Tuesday, the day before Lent begins. As the observant prepare to repent for their sins, they traditionally spend the last day reveling in the things they are about to give up.
Shrove Tuesday is determined by where Easter falls. It's basically the time when people gather and they pray for forgiveness of their sins, getting prepared to start Lent. A time of cleansing, a time of renewal.
But Mark and many others around the world don't call it Shrove Tuesday or Fat Tuesday. They call it Pancake Day. An annual tradition that began in the United Kingdom 6 centuries ago. And what do you do on Pancake Day? You guessed it, eat lots of pancakes. But how did a pancake feast become the last blast before Lent? The church strictly forbade the use of animal products like eggs and oil during Lent. Such self-denial was deemed a sign of pious discipline.
People looked for a way to get rid of those items because you couldn't keep them for 40 days. They wouldn't be good. So pancakes were a natural. You made pancakes, got rid of all your ingredients that you couldn't have during Lent before you went to the shriving service to ask for forgiveness.
Over time, the Pancake Day ritual took root. And in 1445, flipping flapjacks moved from the kitchen to the racetrack.
The legend goes, there was a lady cooking pancakes, and she heard the church bell ringing for the shriving service, and she was running late, so she ran out the door, pancake in the skillet, flipping it on the way to church, got to the church steps, she flipped the pancake, went into the shriving service.
This accident may have led to the annual tradition known as the Pancake Race. Every Shrove Tuesday, apron-clad women race each other to church while flipping pancakes.
It's the Pancake Derby at Olney, and as fine a field as any in its 500 years history faces the starter.
And there goes the bell. They're off. Across the square, into the street, 500 yards to go and finish at the church. It's a close race, all right. Mrs. Bosworth takes the lead. No, she's close hauled by Mrs. Barnes. But she spurts on the home stretch, and she's got the race in the pan.
It happens on Shrove Tuesday. That's Ash Wednesday.
The custom was popular in England for centuries, but not well known in the United States.
Pancake Day. with breakfast served.
Then, in 1950, a magazine article featured a photo of pancake racers in the British town of Olney. And when the citizens of liberal Kansas saw that photo, they licked their lips and wanted in.
Liberal wrote a letter to the church in Olney asking if the ladies of Olney would be up for a challenge from the ladies in Liberal for a race. So in 1950, the first Pancake Day race was run between the ladies of Liberal and Olney, and it's continued for 67 years.
It's just a fun competition to do across the seas with Olney. I just love that the community gets together.
These days, pancakes don't loom so large in religious observances. Because we don't just eat pancakes before Lent. We eat them all the time. From a race to prove religious devotion to an entire day of flapjack repentance, pancakes are clearly stacked with a sinful past. I may as well confess, I'm no angel. You've heard the phrase, flat as a pancake, but what does it mean? And more importantly, is it accurate? We'll find out. Next on Food, Fact or Fiction. We've all heard the phrase, flat as a pancake. It's been in use since the 1500s. It's the way we might describe a slab of wood, or a boring movie, or the state of Kansas. But is Kansas really as flat as a flapjack? In 2003, a team of geographers decided to put this tongue-in-cheek slogan to the test. They went out and actually compared the relative flatness of pancakes with the terrain of the Sunflower State. They found that although pancakes are flat, Kansas is even flatter. Sorry, Kansas. Maybe some toppings and a little maple syrup would make you less, well, flat. We've all heard that in order to have enough energy for the day, we need a hearty morning meal. After all, the word breakfast is made up of the words break and fast, as in breaking the fast we've been on since dinner. Is breakfast really the most important meal of the day? Or have we all been getting up on the wrong side of the bed? Go anywhere in the world and you'll find an American breakfast on the menu. But it wasn't always this way. The ancient Romans usually broke their fast around noon. They viewed eating more than 2 meals a day as gluttonous. In the 17th century, Queen Elizabeth was a fan of a morning nibble, and the trend spread throughout Europe.
Ooh, where's my tea?
But the first signs of a true hearty breakfast appeared during the mid-19th century's Industrial Revolution. Laborers needed an early meal to sustain them through the 9-to-5 grind. And soon, people from all social strata were taking a meal before heading to work. Today, Americans in particular are known for starting the day off with a breakfast of champions. Eggs, toast, and of course, bacon. Exactly how the nation came to lean on a hearty breakfast every morning is a story that Dan Pashman loves to tell. Over breakfast, of course.
Before the 1920s, American breakfasts were pretty simple and small. Orange juice, coffee, maybe a roll. But all that changed thanks to the efforts of one man. I'm ready to get something more.
The man's name was Edward L. Bernays.
Edward L. Bernays was born in 1891, and he's known as the father of public relations. This guy was a pioneer in marketing and propaganda.
But how did Bernays change our breakfast eating habits, and why? In 1925, Bernays was approached by the Beechnut Packing Company. Beechnut was eager to boost sales of a surprising meat product, bacon.
Beechnut Packing Company comes to Bernays, and they say, look, we need help. We got to sell more bacon. Now, I know to those of us here today, that sounds like an easy job, right? But remember, this was the dark ages, when you were lucky if your breakfast came with a roll.
Bernays took the job and set his sights on making bacon a staple at every breakfast table.
Bernays orchestrated a massive marketing campaign to make bacon and eggs the all-American breakfast.
One of Bernays' favorite techniques for influencing public opinion was the indirect use of third-party authorities to plead his clients' causes.
Here's how it works. He goes to a doctor, and he's like, do you agree that a hearty breakfast is better than a small one?
Yes, I do.
Do you also agree that bacon and eggs is a hearty breakfast?
That's exactly right.
Bernays does this with 5,000 doctors. The newspapers treat it like a scientific study. They run headlines across the country that say things like, a hearty breakfast of bacon and eggs is the most important meal of the day. Bacon never looked back. Beechnut sales went through the roof. Don't understand why. Oh, God.
Americans all over the country bought into bacon and eggs for breakfast. And bought, and bought, and bought.
Nowadays, the average American eats 18 pounds of bacon a year. I'm doing my part.
Bacon for breakfast heralded a new era of morning indulgence in America. These days, elaborate breakfast dishes are the norm, from red velvet pancakes to fancy scrambles to all-you-can-eat buffets. Nearly 100 years have passed since bacon transformed the modern breakfast. But can we trust Edward Bernay's so-called scientific study? Or has breakfast been overrated? Next, on food, fact or fiction? Find out the truth behind more food myths at cookingchanneltv.com/fact or fiction. America's love affair with breakfast is undeniable. But it's a love affair that was born out of a suspicious marketing ploy. A ploy many Americans apparently still embrace.
Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I usually eat yogurt or oatmeal for breakfast every day.
If I don't eat breakfast, then my stomach growls and then I can't concentrate the rest of the day, so.
If I miss breakfast, then I'm pretty much starving the whole day.
I think this whole breakfast thing is kind of a crock. I don't really think that's the most important meal of the day.
So, just how important is the so-called most important meal of the day? Maybe it's time for a wake-up call.
I can't say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day because all meals are important, but it does provide some unique benefits. Research shows that breakfast eaters have a better mood, they can concentrate better in the morning, it helps with weight management, and it helps prevent a host of ailments.
Skipping breakfast can slow down the body's metabolism and cause spikes in our blood sugar levels.
Research shows that breakfast skippers tend to have less nutrients in their diet overall, less vitamins and minerals. Plus, breakfast can help keep you energized in the morning. It can help you think better.
Breakfast skippers also tend to eat more food than usual during their next meal, or they snack on high-calorie and sugary foods to stave off hunger. So that means we should all just stuff ourselves during breakfast, right?
So just because breakfast is good for you doesn't mean it's a free-for-all to have the bacon, the eggs, the pancakes. That's going to have the opposite effect. It's going to cause tiredness, sluggishness. It can lead to weight gain. So it is important what you choose as your morning meal. So an ideal breakfast is going to have enough calories to keep you fueled without weighing you down. It's also going to have a mix of protein and fiber to stabilize your blood sugar levels.
It seems Edward Bernays and his claims of a hearty breakfast being the most important meal of the day were a tad misleading. Clever marketing, infused with the smell of bacon, is a powerful combination. But while too big a breakfast might slow you down, a lazy morning can be just what the body needs. Hold all my calls. We've separated food fact from food fiction. We enjoyed a fresh brewed take on the notion that coffee stunts your growth. Discovered why the church used to consider pancakes a little too sinfully delicious. And we tested the theory that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. No meal is complete without a spoonful of fact and a dash of fiction.